everyone. Welcome to our journey through Jerusalem. We're going to start our story today in the Garden of Eden. This was a beautiful garden. This was a garden that was created by God for Adam and his wife Eve. Everything in it was perfect. There was no sin. God told Adam and Eve, he said, of any tree in this garden you're free to eat of except of the tree of good and evil, the knowledge of good and evil. And he said, eat whatever you want to do, but do not eat that, because God heard the cry of man and he realized that man desperately needed God back in their hearts. So he sent his son, Jesus, to be born of a virgin. I'm going to send a death angel and I'm going to kill every person. Good.
I am the potter, you were the clay. We break our bread fresh in Jerusalem daily.
We grow our own potatoes in Jerusalem.
Today, everything that we see and do, there's one question I want each of you to run through your mind. Look, this was the physician's booth. Came to earth with one thing in mind. The Bible says that I come not to heal those that are well, but I came to heal those that are sick. And as Christians, that should be a testimony to us that we have the power that Jesus had once we accepted him as our. This is the fragrance shop. Several different scriptures in the Bible talks about. One in particular was right before Jesus was getting ready to enter into Jerusalem for the Passover, and knowingly that he was going to be had to be crucified. Then the women would adorn themselves with jewelry. But this was something that probably Jesus put very little emphasis on, because Jesus was such a plain Messiah. Had any kind of horse or anything, any kind of tool, any kind of weapon had to be made by the blacksmith. Basket shop. What we know about biblical times, they carried their food in baskets. They carried their. They could even make the basket sealed up where it could hold water. But mainly what they carry fruit and vegetables. And women weave their own baskets. We take for granted, we go buy stuff, but back then they handmade each and everything that they had. And how we can find a thread shop. These ladies, after they would shear the wool off the lamb, they would take and make all sorts of thread for their clothing. Usually they could make colorful clothing, just like their thread is colorful today. But everything that people in Jesus' day, they handcrafted themselves. That's what then. They definitely believed in the stars. They used the constellations to make their maps and stuff. Next booth is something that we should all take and learn. Jesus was the Son of God. Jesus was perfect. Jesus knew no sin. But at the Last Supper, Jesus takes his disciples and he tells them, he says, I'm going to wash your feet. And Peter, being one of the chief apostles, says, no, Master, you're not going to wash my feet. I'm going to wash yours. And Jesus said, no, you don't understand. I have to teach you how to be a servant. This is something that we can watch and learn from. But what I like about Peter, and this is how we can find Jesus, Peter said, well, if you're going to wash my feet, just go ahead and wash my whole body. Okay? Because I said, I want to be washed by you. And so, but this was something Jesus did, each of his apostles, to show that after he was gone, they were going to have to do the same thing. And today, we should be willing to be able to wash people's feet just because of servitude. The next booth is the flute maker. Music was a special way of worship in Jesus' day. We know David to be a harpist. We know that the book of Psalms talks about flutists and different musical instruments. And the good thing about music is simply play a quick song on to show us what it sounds like. Thank you. You can see the beautiful sound that would come out of these flutes. The next one is the Last Supper. This is Jesus' last meal on earth before he was to go to be crucified. He was with his 12 disciples. This was the supper in which Jesus says in his word that one of his disciples would betray him for 30 pieces of silver. And you can imagine the disciple sitting next to Jesus, and he breaks bread to represent his body. Then he drinks the wine to represent the blood of the Lamb. And then can you imagine going through their mind when he says, one of you, and he looks up and down at each of them and says, one of you will betray me tonight. Okay, and then the Bible says Judas leans over and Jesus tells him, do what you must do. He goes to the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They give him the 30 pieces of silver, and so he can betray Jesus. What is good about the temple, in the Bible, there was a veil that separated the Holy of Holies from the second part where the priest could go in and burn a sacrifice to atone for sin. There was a curtain that was 30 feet tall, 6 inches thick. And that curtain kept anybody and everybody from ever going into the Holy of Holies where the Ark of the Covenant was. If you went, the priest could only go in one time a year, and then after that he had to come back out. So it was a very special place. It was the house of God. And when we go next door, I will come back and tell you about what happened to this veil that was 6 inches thick, 30 feet tall. On our way to Golgotha, Jesus is carrying his cross. He's just been whipped with the cat of nine tails. He's been hit with fists. He's been spit in the face. He's been kicked. And so now he's trying to carry it up a little narrow strip going to a hill called Golgotha. This is the final place of what we knew Jesus in his earthly body. He gets to the cross, the Roman guards, they take and they nail the spikes into his hands. They drive the spikes into his feet. They put him up on the cross. It was a terrible, terrible way to be punished back in the days of the Romans. These Roman guards were usually very big, very muscular. They'd done a lot of battle. They were just terrible people. But they was witnessing what was going on with Jesus, and they knew that they'd never heard Jesus say one negative word through this whole ordeal. He didn't talk bad about anything. He was here because he knew that every one of us, if he did not go through with the plan of God and die on that cross and shed his blood, you and I would not have the opportunity to be saved. This is the greatest day in the history of Christianity. They took Jesus off the cross, they embalmed him, and they buried him in a borrowed tomb, and they put him in, and they laid him up on probably a stone deal because there wasn't any wood back then, and they laid Jesus there, and they put him in there, and they rolled the stone across the tomb because they had one thing in mind. That was the end of Jesus. They buried him. He was there to be, they took this, the Romans put this huge rock, so they thought it would protect him. But little did they know that this was the Son of God, and the Son of God has no fear of rocks or anything else. So after 3 days, all of a sudden an angel appears, rolls the rock back, and then the Bible tells us about how Mary came and seen that the tomb was empty, and she talked to the angel, and the angel says, "What are you looking for? Who are you looking for?" Well, how many times had Jesus told them? He said, "I'm going to be crucified, and on the third day I'm going to rise." But they couldn't comprehend that in their mind. No one had ever conquered death except Jesus. But you must be a born-again Christian to be invited to this glorious wedding feast. And that is the conclusion of our journey through Jerusalem.